Now, I am proud to introduce acclaimed humanitarian, actor, activist, and UNFPA Global Goodwill Ambassador, and my dear friend and acting colleague, Ashley Judd.
Thank you so much, Mira. It's really good to see you, and I so enjoyed your brilliant opening remarks. Thank you so much for your indefatigable work on behalf of survivors everywhere. And good morning, good afternoon everywhere. Hello, esteemed colleagues, and thanks to the German Permanent Mission to the United Nations. It's really good to be with you today, and I want to acknowledge that I am on Cherokee land here in rural Middle Tennessee, from where I'm acknowledged. I just want to acknowledge that. And I want to speak a little bit from the American context, even though I am joining you today as UNFPA's Goodwill Ambassador. I've had the pleasure and honor of traveling all over the world with UNFPA, the United Nations Agency for Sexual and Reproductive Health, and the agency that seeks in conjunction with UN Women and other agencies to end violence against girls and women. And as I think about that, you know, I think about from whence does this violence come? And the feminism that we all talk about when we acknowledge our international women's human rights defenders and their courage, and these programs that seek to empower and protect the bodily autonomy and the sexual dignity of girls and women, we have to acknowledge that that violence comes from boys and men and the toxic masculinity that they are taught. So I want to kind of try to weave all of this together, and the systems that the intersecting systems of oppression in which girls and women live, and the toxic masculinity that boys and men are taught and to which they feel entitled. And I want to bring that into the locality of Tennessee. And so the first human trafficking that happened here in Tennessee was colonialism, and Indigenous women who are missing and murdered in America. You know, it happened under colonialism, and we just acknowledged Thanksgiving, which is a national day of mourning for Native peoples. And Native peoples in the US comprise only 2.4% of the population, but they account for, but their sexual violence, they experience at rates of they experience rates of sexual and gender-based violence are twice as likely as other members of the population, and over 67% of their perpetrators are non-Native. So that brings in race, it brings in class, and these intersecting oppressions. And so we have to acknowledge when we talk about human trafficking that racism is a part of it, and that class is a part of it, and poverty is a part of it, and often being undocumented is a part of it. And so when we have this new administration in America, we look to the new administration to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act in the first 100 days, as they have promised to do. And we look at poverty alleviation, and we look at, you know, this cry for social justice and the ending of racism in America as part of it. And I've seen that in all the places to which I've traveled with UNFPA. And I was thinking in particular about this woman in Jordan who was Egyptian, and she was, she didn't have papers, and when her husband married her, he forced her into begging. And then, of course, when she got pregnant, he trafficked her daughter who was born. And you just see how all of these play in. And so switching to the men who have this demand for female bodies, we have to end the demand for female bodies. And so holding men accountable means that we end impunity, we change attitudes, and we ensure that the commodification of girls' and women's bodies is something that between men's two ears is no longer acceptable, okay, and that the entitlement is abolished. And because there will always be these supply of vulnerable girls and women. And I just wanted to bring that up because I know that some of my colleagues had mentioned ending impunity, and that's very important to me. And so feminism exists because we are a feminist agency. Feminism exists to break down the privacy in which men incest, assault, beat, and rape women, so that we understand that women have these alliances in which we can be disruptors, and that men will be held accountable for their actions. And not all men are perpetrators and aggressors. Men are in these alliances with us. And that is really my message for you today. And I know that we're going to have some questions and answers later. And I just want to acknowledge that as part of UNFPA, I have seen women sing and be resilient and dance, but I'm looking forward to the day when we have no sexual and gender-based violence, especially under COVID, from which to be resilient. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing your powerful message with us today.